Hey YouTube, Brian Hectic here again. If you subscribe to my page or you randomly stumbled upon this somehow, you probably know that a few weeks ago I made a video of the unboxing and first impressions of the Matrix /AY Browning automatic rifle M1918 that I received. Well, this is the same rifle, only difference is that I fielded it since then. And as promised, I said I would make a video of, a more in-depth review of the rifle after I fielded it. So, as you can see, it looks a little bit different. I've done some cosmetic adjustments to it since then. One of the most noticeable is that I took the bipod off it. And that just wasn't practical. What I was looking for when I bought this rifle was, one, because I just freaking wanted a B.A.R, and also I wanted something that was a little bit more agile than, let's say, my M60. So a lot of this had to do with weight reduction, and I think it just looks a lot sexier without the bipod. Also, I took the flash hider off the black flash hider, and that's really about it. So I noticed that a lot of people were saying, who bought this rifle, were saying that they had a hard time figuring out how to get the bipod off. So obviously, if you're familiar with airsoft, you know the easiest way to get an orange flash hider off is to either use a hair dryer to melt the glue or boil some water, which is usually what I do, and get the water boiling and then stick the flash hider into the boiling water for about a minute or two, and it usually softens up the glue, and then you can, pop the flash hider off or unscrew it with relative ease. So what happened was I did that, and then I couldn't figure out how to get this unscrewed. I could tell that it came unscrewed, but it just wouldn't budge, and I didn't want to force it and break anything. So I was like, I wonder if there's glue on this part as well. And lo and behold, I stuck it back in the boiling water and did the same procedure, and took a wrench to this, because it's it's shaped like the wrench. I forget what millimeter it was, and it unscrewed, and I was able to take the bipod off. So those are the cosmetic adjustments I made to it. It's much lighter without the bipod, and it obviously looks a lot better without the flash hider. But without further ado, I will go into the post-performance review of this rifle. So I fielded the rifle at a game up in New York last weekend with the team that I usually run with, and it was amazing. Like, it was such a great, I haven't had that much fun in airsoft in such a long time. The gun performed well, functionality wise, no issues, no nothing. I chronoed it, and it was, the chrono at the game claimed that it shot 330 FPS with .25s. So I'm just going to make a guesstimate and assume that with .2s it probably would have shot around 365, 380 FPS, which is a little bit off of what Evike claimed when they sent it to me. As you can see, it says they claimed it shot 430 to 450 FPS with .2s, which just wasn't the case. Not a big deal though, because with the hop-up, I'm not sure what kind of hop-up is in here, but whatever it is, it's a beautiful hop-up. It's super sensitive, very responsive. I was easily getting accurate kills from about, I'd say, 75 to 80 yards away, which is it's almost an entire football field length. So I was very impressed with that. I also bought some spare magazines, and a lot of people were saying, especially with the Echo 1 version of this rifle, that they had feeding issues at, you know, especially with a 9.6, but I ran a 9.6 and, you know, just held the trigger down, and they fed flawlessly, excluding, you know, one time where one of the mags got jammed, and it, you know, I just kind of took it to one of the staging area tables and smacked it on the table, and it, you know, rewound itself. These are all high caps, and I know everyone goes like, oh my god, high caps, but I mean, it is a support weapon, and what made the B.A.R. unique as an automatic weapon in World War II compared to something like, let's say, the Thompson submachine gun was that the Thompson shot, you know, the 45 ACP ammunition, and the B.A.R. chamber, I think it was the 0306 Springfield round. And obviously in airsoft, you know, 99% of the time you're not going to have anything except 6mm BBs. All airsoft guns, excluding a few that chamber the 8mm, most airsoft rifles chamber the 6mm. So that being said, there really is no difference in airsoft between, you know, a Browning automatic rifle and a Thompson. So for the sake of realism, I think it's fairly appropriate to actually use a high cap. Not to mention these high caps only carry 90 rounds, but you're only going to get about 190 rounds, but you're only going to really get 180 rounds out of them. And, you know, usually when I would shoot it after, you know, winding it up and cycling through an entire, you know, wind up, there were maybe like 20 or 30 rounds left, and most of the time I was just, after that initial cycle, I just pop the magazine out and reload again anyway. So that's my rationale. I don't think it's a big deal that they only have high caps for the B.A.R. unless you're doing like a legitimate World War II reenactment. What I'm using it for is a support weapon. I think it kind of makes sense in the realm of airsoft. So that being said, it performed well, you know. Nothing really fell apart, obviously. As you can see, it got a little scuffed up from, you know, being pushed around in the brush. Like, I really put this gun through its paces when I fielded it. I didn't mess around. And it held up pretty well. I guess next I'll go over the internals and what I could gather from the internet as far as what the internals. Okay, so going into the internals of this rifle, as far as the gearbox goes, it has an M240B style gearbox. That being said, that's very reassuring to me because just, you know, this is a hypothesis, but I'm assuming that means that it can, you know, withstand semi-prolonged lengths of, you know, continuous fire. So I don't have to worry about, you know, stripping anything or burning through the motor or anything else while I'm fielding this as a support weapon. So that's that M240 or the M240B gearbox is really great. This gun is also, and I did not know this, it's also equipped with a MOSFET system. And for those of you that don't know, just in layman's terms, it pretty much prevents your trigger contact from frying if you decide to field it with a LiPo or any other high output battery that increases the rate of fire to ridiculous levels. So I'm planning on just fielding a 9.6 in this rifle, but I guess if you really want to field a LiPo in it, well, you can. So it's LiPo ready. That's really about it. As far as the internals go, again, I couldn't find out what kind of hop-up it has, but it's, you know, great. I guess next we will look at some of the cons that I talked about in my previous video, the initial variables and factors that I didn't like about the gun when I first opened it, and some of the pros that I've seen since I fielded it. So I'd say 90% of my video the previous video I made of the unboxing was me bitching about the stock and how wobbly it was when I took it out of the box. So initially I was going to try and epoxy it right here, but then I was kind of like, you know, if I ever have to pop the gearbox out or have it worked on, that might not be a good idea. So I did a little bit of digging on the internet, and I figured out that it's relatively simple to pop the upper receiver off to expose the gearbox and the internals. You just pop this pin out, and this, you know, it swivels out like that, and you just pop it right off. But I digress. So you pop that off, and the lower receiver comes out, just disconnects from the gun, and that exposes about 6 screws going in this right angle formation right here, and you just tighten. They're on each side, and I just tighten them down, and there's no more wobble. Like, there's virtually no wobble anymore. The screws that they have on there, because this is a clone from China, they have those cheap, crappy little screws that don't really torque down very well. So you may have to pop it out and tighten them down after every game or whenever it's appropriate. But that issue was resolved, which I was very happy about. Side note to e-bike, you may want to focus a little bit on your quality control in that regard, because it was pretty noticeable, so I can't imagine they didn't see that. But I don't want to get too off topic. So unfortunately, with every good turn, there's always a not so good turn. So moving down here, so this is the barrel, but it's actually 2 pieces, and this part of the barrel goes from here and then stops right here, and from here on is actually a separate piece, and it wobbles. You probably can't see it in the camera, but it's this piece from here on is connected by this part, and it doesn't fit very snugly. So there's like a little bit of wobble there, and it kind of drives me nuts when I'm fielding it, and I can feel it when I shoulder the rifle. It just sucks. I tried epoxying, adding like a little dab of epoxy on each corner, and that actually got rid of it. But I was humping around in the woods, and I was bumping into things, and of course the barrel bumps into it, and that kind of broke the seal of the epoxy, so it wobbles again. So I just have to find a stronger bond to kind of wire that down. But it's not a big deal. It just kind of annoyed me, and I think that's kind of dumb that they made the barrel 2 separate pieces. But again, it's a clone, so what do you really expect? The forward hand grip, it doesn't wobble, but there's like a little shift. It shifts a little bit every time you lift it, and there are screws, but I tightened them down and didn't really do much. Yeah, that's really about it. As far as the pros and cons go since the last video. Oh, no, I lied. So the way this stock is tailored, or the way they carpentered the stock, it is just it's so stupid, it's almost a nightmare. And I'm gonna put the camera on the tripod and show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so I pulled the butt plate off the rifle, and the stock's opened, and now I'm shining a light in there. You can kind of see how they have this, dug out in there, and it doesn't. It's just all these weird shapes. It's like, why wouldn't you make it one like unified, like hollow stock? Like, why do you have all these caverns and ridges in there? It doesn't make any sense, and I'll show you why this is such a downside to this stock. So here I have a bunch of different batteries in all shapes and sizes. Do you like to know the only battery that fits in this stock? Only this one. Of all these shapes and sizes, none of these fit in that stock at all. I've tried every different way. I was able to squeeze the nunchucks in there, my 9.6 2000 milliamp nunchucks, but I couldn't get the stock shut because here's the butt plate, the butt plate. This little mechanism, this little metal piece right here just obstructs it, and I don't even know why it's there. But regardless, it is so irritating. The only battery that I was able to fit in there was this 9.6 1600 milliamp battery. And as you can imagine, if you know anything about airsoft, 1600 milliamps doesn't last a support weapon very long. Like, it lasted probably like 4 hours before I had to switch the battery out. And it wouldn't be a big deal if I could just pop batteries in and out and swap them, but this butt plate, the only way to get the battery out is to actually unscrew it. And that, I can't even begin to tell you how tedious that is. So, it just drives me up a wall. Like, the lack of common sense just the lack of common sense when it came to engineering this stock with Matrix or AY or whoever engineered this stock. They were just like, oh, hey, let's make... I can't see any real practical reason for why they have all those grooves in there. From what I could see, there was no electronics running through the stock. There were no... Like I said, the way the stock's secured to the rifle, all the screws are right here. So it's like, why wouldn't you just make this all hollow? It just doesn't add up to me. And it really sucks. But I just wanted to show you guys that if you're buying this rifle, just be prepared. Don't be fooled thinking, oh, well, it's a full stock, so I can fit any battery I want in there, because it's just not the case. You can only fit a stick type in there, and it has to be like a force, either an 8-cell small size nunchuck or a stick battery, or not a nunchuck, a butterfly stick type. And it's a shame, because if I could get a large type, 3800 milliamp battery in there, or even, like I said, a 2000 milliamp nunchuck, I'd be set. But it stinks. So that is the one last con I have, and probably the biggest irritation that I have with this rifle. I'm not sure if the wood counterpart, or not the wood, the plastic counterpart of this rifle is the same. If anyone out there has one, please feel free to leave a comment and let me know, because I'd really love to know if this variable is specific to the wood kit or if it's the same way in the plastic stock. But that's about it, really. Alright, so the moment of truth. The rating I'd give this gun, and my initial thought was, 5 out of 5 stars or 4 out of 5 stars. But I'm just being biased because I love the B.A.R. and just the fact that I own one is amazing. But I have to be as unbiased in my reviews as possible, and just based on some of the cosmetic faults with this rifle and some of the build quality issues that have, popped up, and the impracticality of some of the aspects of the gun, I'd have to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. Like 3 out of 5 stars. It's amazing. It performs well, but some of some of those impracticalities really do kind of turn you off, or at least they turn me off. But I love the gun. I love fielding it. When you turn heads on the field, that's always fun. And it's at the point where it's a relatively new rifle in the airsoft market, that it hasn't gotten to that point where like a zillion players are fielding this gun. So I like it. Even though it's 3 out of 5 stars, I like it. I don't know if it's practical for a primary weapon. Well, I know it's not practical for a primary weapon for a variety of reasons, but if you have a chunk of change lying around and you want something unique that you want to field every now and then, I would definitely recommend the Matrix Browning Automatic Rifle 1918. It's a B.A.R. for Pete's sake. Anyway, this is Brian Hectic. This is my review of the Matrix Browning Automatic Rifle 1918, and I'll catch you later.